I've built rockets that touch the edge of space. I've revolutionized the auto industry. I've made billions of dollars. People call me a genius, a visionary, a man who's changing the world. But 15 years ago, I lost the only battle that ever really mattered.
Last week, I stood on stage at the Tesla Gigafactory in Austin, giving a speech to thousands of people. I was talking about the future, about innovation, about hope.
And then I saw her in the crowd. Just in, my first wife, the woman I hadn't seen in 15 years, the woman who knew me before I became Elon Musk. After my speech, she was waiting for me in a private lounge. She had something to tell me, something she'd kept secret for 22 years. Something about our son, the one we lost when he was just 10 weeks old. She handed me an old journal and said 4 words that stopped my heart. It's about Nevada. Everything I've built, every rocket I've launched, every impossible goal I've chased, it all traces back to one night in a hospital chapel in 2002, a night when I made promises to a dying baby. Promises that would change my life forever. But I never knew Justine heard those promises. I never knew she'd been carrying a secret all these years. And I never knew that what she was about to tell me would tear apart everything I thought I understood about grief, about purpose, about why I became who I am. This is the story of how one conversation changed everything. Again, I don't usually get nervous before speeches anymore. After thousands of presentations, product launches, and shareholder meetings, standing in front of a crowd feels as natural as breathing. But that day, October 7th, 2024, something felt different. The Texas sun blazed down on the Tesla Gigafactory grounds in Austin. Thousands of people packed the outdoor arena we'd built for the grand opening ceremony. This wasn't just another factory. This was a statement. 5 million square feet of American manufacturing power, churning out 500,000 vehicles a year. The future, made real. I stood backstage, reviewing my notes on a tablet. My assistant, Rhea, handed me a bottle of water. 5 minutes, Elon, she said. I nodded, barely hearing her. My mind was already on stage, walking through the speech. I'd talk about sustainable energy, about making electric vehicles affordable for everyone, about the jobs we'd created. Standard stuff, but important. The crowd roared as the announcement came over the speakers. Time to go. I walked out into the blinding sunlight, and the noise hit me like a physical force. People cheering, cameras flashing, music pumping through massive speakers. I raised my hand and smiled. The crowd got louder. Thank you, I shouted into the microphone. Thank you for being here. It took a full minute for everyone to quiet down. I looked out to see faces, employees in Tesla shirts, reporters with cameras, local politicians in suits, families with kids on their shoulders. This was what I loved. Real people, real impact. 10 years ago, I began. People told me Texas wasn't ready for Tesla. They said we should stay in California, play it safe. But I knew something they didn't. Texas isn't just ready for the future. Texas is the future. The crowd erupted again. I grinned and waited. This factory represents more than just cars. It represents hope. Hope that we can solve climate change. Hope that we can create good jobs. Hope that we can build things in America again. I was hitting my stride now, feeling the energy. My eyes scanned the crowd, making eye contact with different sections, keeping everyone engaged. That's when I saw her, front row of the VIP section, 20 feet away. My brain stuttered like a computer crashing. Justine, my first wife, a woman I hadn't seen in 15 years. She looked different. Her dark hair was shorter now, with thin streaks of gray she didn't bother hiding. Lines around her eyes that weren't there before. But it was unmistakably her. Same intense gaze, same way of standing with her arms crossed, like she was analyzing everything. Our eyes met for 1 second, one impossible second where the crowd noise faded and time slowed down. She didn't smile, didn't wave, just looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. I realized I'd stopped talking. The crowd shifted, confused. Someone coughed. I shook my head, forcing my brain back online. Sorry, I said with a laugh. The Texas heat is getting to me. People chuckled. I jumped back into the speech, but my autopilot had taken over. My mouth said words I rehearsed, but my mind was spinning. What was Justine doing here? We hadn't spoken since 2009, except through lawyers about our kids. She never came to my events, never wanted anything to do with the public side of my life. And that's why Tesla will continue to lead the way in sustainable transportation. I finished raising my fist. The crowd went wild. Music blasted, confetti cannons fired. I waved and smiled, but searching the VIP section, she was gone. Had I imagined it? Was my brain playing tricks? I'd been working 20-hour days for months. Maybe exhaustion was catching up. I walked off stage in a daze. Maria appeared with a towel and a fresh shirt. Great speech, she said. Governor Abbott wants a photo, then you got the factory tour with... Did you see it was in the VIP section? I interrupted. She blinked. Yeah, it's the usual. Local officials, major investors, some press, a woman, dark hair, about this tall, a gesture. Maria scrolled through her tablet. We had 200 VIPs. I'd need more details. A security guard approached. Mr. Musk, there's someone waiting for you in the private lounge. She says it's important. My stomach dropped. Who? He checked his radio. At Justine Wilson. He says you know her. Wilson. Her maiden name. The name she went back to after our divorce. Tell the governor I need 10 minutes, I said to Maria. But 10 minutes. I followed the security guard through a maze of hallways inside the factory. Workers stopped and stared, but I barely noticed. My heart was pounding harder than it did during rocket launches. The guard opened a door to a small lounge we'd set up for private meetings. Windows overlooking the factory floor. A couch, some chairs, a coffee table, and Justine standing by the window looking out at the assembly line below. She turned when I entered. The guard closed the door behind me and suddenly we're alone for the first time in 15 years. Hey, Elon, she said quietly. Justine. My voice came out rough. I cleared my throat. This is unexpected. I know, I'm sorry to ambush you like this. How'd you even get in? The VIP list. I called your office last week and asked Maria if I could attend. I used my old name Wilson. She probably didn't connect it. Smart. Maria had only worked for me for 3 years. She wouldn't know my ex-wife's name. We stood there 10 feet apart, not knowing what to do. Do we hug? Shake hands? Stay frozen? Justine looked tired. Not just physically, but deep down tired. The kind that comes from carrying something heavy for too long. You look good, she said. Healthy. You too. It was a lie and we both knew it. She looked worn. I've been writing again, she said, like that explained anything. Got a new novel coming out next year. That's great. I'm happy for you. More silence. This was painful. Look, I said, I have about 1,000 people waiting for me out there. If this is about the kids, we can schedule a call. Or, it's not about the kids. She turned back to the window. Well, not the ones you're thinking of. My blood went cold. There was only one kid she could mean. Nevada, she whispered. I hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in years. My throat tightened. What about him? I managed. She reached into her bag and pulled out a leather-bound journal, old, worn at the edges. She held it against her chest, like a shield. I kept a journal, she said, from those weeks. The weeks with Nevada, from when he was born until after.
My legs felt weak. I sat down on the couch without meaning to.
22 years. Justine continued. I've carried this journal for 22 years. Never showed anyone. Not our therapist. Not my family. Not my friends. Why are you showing me now? She finally looked at me directly. Her eyes were wet. Because I can't carry it alone anymore. And because there's something in here you need to know. Something about that night at the hospital. Something I never told you. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Probably Maria wondering where I was. I ignored it. What night? I asked, though I knew. There was only one night that mattered. The last night. Before we decided to... She couldn't finish the sentence. Neither could I. She walked over and sat in the chair across from me. She placed the journal on the coffee table between us, her hand still resting on it. I heard you, she said. That night at Orange County Children's Hospital, it was 3 in the morning. I'd fallen asleep in the waiting room. When I woke up, you weren't there. I went looking for you. I remembered that night. Of course I remembered. You don't forget the night you decided to let your son go. I found you in Nevada's room, Justine said. The doors cracked open. You were talking to him, making promises. My chest felt tight. I thought I was alone. I didn't want to interrupt, she continued. So I stood outside and listened. And then I came back to the waiting room and wrote down everything I heard. Every word you said to our baby boy. She slid the journal across the table. Read it, she said. Please. I stared at the journal like it might explode. Part of me wanted to run, to go back to the crowd, the cameras, the factory, the things I control. But I couldn't move. That's not all, Justine added softly. There's more. Something I discovered recently. Something that changes everything I thought I knew about that day. What do you mean? She stood up abruptly. I can't just tell you. You need to read it first. You need to understand what I've been carrying. My phone buzzed again. And again. The governor's probably looking for me, I said stupidly. This is more important than the governor. Her voice cracked. This is more important than anything, Elon. Please. I picked up the journal. The leather was soft and warm from her hands. Adjusting, I said carefully, what is this really about? She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking small. It's about Nevada, she said. It's about us. It's about 15 years of silence. And it's about something I need to tell you before it's too late. Too late for what? She smiled sadly. Just read it. Then I'll explain everything. She turned toward the door. Wait, I stood up. You're leaving? You need time alone with this. I'm staying at the Four Seasons downtown, room 1847. Come find me when you're ready. Just in. She opened the door and paused. Elon, she said, without turning around. Yeah? I'm sorry it took me 15 years to do this, but I'm not sorry I came. And then she was gone. I stood there holding the journal, my hands shaking. Through the window, I could see the factory floor buzzing with activity. Robots welding, conveyor belts moving, the future being built, piece by piece. But all I could think about was the past. The journal felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I sat back down and opened it to the first page. The handwriting was Justin's, small, precise, a little shaky. The date at the top, May. Today I became a mother, the first line read. Today everything changed. My vision blurred. Someone knocked on the door. Mr. Musk, the tour is starting. I closed the journal and wiped my eyes. Give me 5 more minutes, I called out. Then I knew 5 minutes wouldn't be enough. I knew that whatever was in this journal, whatever Justine needed to tell me, was going to tear me apart. Again, I couldn't read the journal there. Not in that factory lounge with people knocking every 30 seconds. Not with Maria texting me frantically about the governor and the investors and the media interviews. I slipped the journal into my jacket pocket and went back to work. The next 3 hours were torture. I smiled for photos with politicians I'd never remember. I walked through the factory pointing at robots and explaining battery technology to reporters who didn't understand half of what I said. I shook hands with workers and thanked them for their dedication. When my mouth moved, my body performed, but my brain was somewhere else. It was in a hospital room in 2002, watching machines breathe for my son. Finally, at 7 p.m., I made an excuse about needing to check on a SpaceX issue and escaped to my car. I didn't go back to my house in Austin. I drove straight to the Four Seasons. The lobby was quiet and expensive looking. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, the kind of place where everyone speaks in hushed voices. I took the elevator to the 18th floor with my heart hammering against my ribs. Room 1847 was at the end of a long hallway. I stood outside the door for a full minute before knocking. Yeah, Justine opened it immediately like she'd been waiting right there. You came, she said. Did you think I wouldn't? He stepped aside to let me in. The room was nice, but not huge. A king bed, a desk, a sitting area by the window. Her laptop was open on the desk. A half-eaten room service meal sat on a tray. Have you eaten, she asked. Not hungry. You never are when you're stressed. She said it without thinking, then looked surprised at herself. Sorry, old habits. I pulled the journal from my pocket and held it up. I couldn't read it at the factory. Too many people. I know. That's why I left. We moved to a sitting area. She took the chair. I sat on the small couch. The same positions as before, like we were magnets repelling each other, maintaining distance. I opened the journal again. The first entry was about Nevada being born. Justine's joy, her fear, the overwhelming love that hits you when you become a parent for the first time. I'd forgotten how beautiful her writing was. Even in a private journal, she couldn't help but craft sentences that painted pictures. I read about Nevada's first week, his tiny fingers, the way he'd grip my thumb, the 3 a.m. feedings, the exhaustion mixed with wonder. Then I reached the entry dated June, the day everything ended. I went to check on him after his nap. Justine had written, he wasn't breathing. I screamed. Elon came running. He picked Nevada up, and I've never seen someone move so fast. We were in the car in seconds. Elon drove like a madman, running red lights, honking at everyone. I held our baby and begged him to breathe. Please breathe. Please breathe. Please. My hands shook. I remembered that drive to the hospital, the longest 10 minutes of my life. They got his heart beating again. The entry continued, but his brain went too long without oxygen. The doctors say we have to wait. Wait and see if there's damage. Wait and hope. I don't know how to wait. I don't know how to hope when my baby is on machine. I looked up at Justine. She was watching me, tears running down her face. Keep reading, she whispered. The next entries were from the hospital. 5 days of hell. Doctors running tests. Machines beeping. The waiting room that smelled like disinfectant and despair. Family members bringing food nobody ate. Friends who didn't know what to say. And running through it all, Justine's private thoughts. her prayers to a God she wasn't sure she believed in, her anger at the universe, her guilt over taking a shower, over eating a sandwich, over any moment she wasn't sitting next to Nevada's bed. Then came the entry from July 3rd. The doctors say there's no brain activity, she wrote. They used words like irreversible and incompatible with life. They're recommending we remove life support. Elon won't talk about it. He keeps saying we need more tests, more time, more options. But I can see it in his eyes. He knows. We both know. Our baby is gone. We're just waiting for his body to understand. I had to stop reading. The words were swimming on the page.
I'm sorry, I said. I don't know if I can...
You have to, Justine said firmly. Keep going, please. I took a shaky breath and continued. It's 3 a.m. now. I fell asleep in the waiting room. When I woke up, Elon was gone. I panicked for a second, then realized he must be with Nevada. I walked down the hallway to our son's room. The ICU is different at night. Quieter, darker, scarier. I could see light under Nevada's door. I heard Elon's voice. He was talking to Nevada. Really talking, not just sitting there, silently like he'd been doing for days. I stopped outside the door. I knew I should go in, but something made me stay in the hallway and listen. I'm glad I did, because what I heard broke my heart and healed it at the same time. My throat was so tight I could barely breathe. Elon was telling Nevada about the stars, Christine wrote. He was explaining space exploration like our 10-week-old baby can understand. He talked about rockets and Mars and making humanity a multi-planet species. His voice was soft and gentle, so different from how he talks about work. Then he said something I'll never forget. He said, I promise you, Nevada, I promise your life will mean something. I'm going to change the world. I'm going to make sure no parent has to go through this again. I'm going to make humans strong enough to survive anything. Even this. Especially this. Then he started crying. Real, hard crying. I never heard Elon cry like that. He said, I'm so sorry, buddy. I'm so sorry I couldn't fix you. I can fix rockets and cars and companies, but I couldn't fix this. I couldn't save you, and that's going to destroy me. But I'm going to use that destruction to build something. I promise. Then he was quiet for a long time. I couldn't see the page anymore. Tears were pouring down my face. I stood in that hallway and cried. Justine's entry continued. I realized I was watching Elon break into pieces, and I knew somehow that those pieces would never fit back together the same way. The man I married was dying along with our son. Someone harder was being born. Someone who couldn't afford to feel this much pain. I went back to the waiting room and wrote this down because I needed to remember. Someday when Elon has pushed me away completely with his work and his walls and his inability to talk about feelings, I will need to remember this moment. I'll need to remember that he did feel, he did break. He just chose to rebuild himself into someone who couldn't break again. I closed the journal and put my face in my hands. The room was silent except for my breathing. Justine got up and sat next to me on the couch. Not touching, but close. I've never told you I heard that, she said softly. For 22 years, I kept it to myself. Why? My voice was rough. Because I knew you'd be embarrassed. You don't like people seeing you vulnerable. Not even me. Especially not me. She was right. Even now. Sitting here crying in front of my ex-wife. I wanted to pull myself together. To crack a joke. To change the subject. But I couldn't. Not this time. Every rocket launch, I said quietly. Every new factory. Every innovation. It's all for him. It's all because of that night.
I know, Justine said. I've always known. I just needed you to know that I knew.
We sat there in silence. Outside the window, Austin's lights twinkled. The world kept turning, completely unaware that my heart was being ripped open. The journal entry ends there. I finally asked. That entry does, but the journal doesn't end. I looked at her. What do you mean? She took the journal from my lap and flipped to the back pages. I kept writing, not every day, but on his birthday, on the anniversary of his death, on hard days when I needed to talk to him. She showed me entries scattered across years, 2005, 2009, 2014, 2020, little notes to Nevada, updates on his brothers, wondering who he would have become. Then she turned to the very last page. The entry was dated October 15th, 2024, just 8 days ago. This is what I really needed you to see, she said. My phone buzzed in my pocket. SpaceX emergency alert. Starship test had some issue. I ignored it. For once, something else was more important. Justine handed me the journal and stood up. Read that last entry, she said, and I'll tell you the rest. The part I couldn't write down. The part that's been eating me alive. She walked to the window and looked out at the city, giving me privacy. I looked down at the page. The handwriting was shakier than the earlier entries, less steady. Dear Nevada, it began. Today you would be 22 years old. I started reading, and with every word, the ground beneath me crumbled a little more. Dear Nevada, the entry read, today you would be 22 years old. My hands trembled as I continued reading Justine's words from just 8 days ago. I imagine you'd be in college, maybe studying engineering, like your father, or maybe literature, like me, and maybe something completely different, music or art or medicine. I imagine you'd be tall, while your brothers are tall. I imagine you'd have your father's intensity and my sensitivity. What a combination that would be.
But I don't get to know. I only get to imagine. And that's the cruelest part of losing you. Not just losing who you were, but losing who you would have become.
I'm writing this entry because something happened yesterday that I can't stop thinking about. I was my doctor's office for a routine checkup. She needed some old medical records, so I went digging through boxes in my storage unit. Files from the Bel Air house. Files from a lifetime ago.
That's when I found it.
A note from your pediatrician.
From your 6-week checkup, Dr. Morrison's handwriting. Barely legible like all doctors. He'd noted that you had slight irregular breathing patterns during sleep and recommended a follow-up appointment in 2 weeks. We never made that appointment. I stared at that note for an hour in that storage unit, sitting on the concrete floor surrounded by boxes of my old life. And I realized something that's been choking me ever since. What if we'd gone to that follow-up? What if the doctor had caught something? What if you'd still be here? I stopped reading. My vision blurred. The journal slipped from my hands onto the couch. I know, I whispered. No. Justine turned from the window. You found it too, didn't you? The note. I couldn't speak. I just nodded. When? She asked. 5 years ago. I was cleaning out files from the old house before selling it. The note was in a folder marked Nevada Medical. I'd never opened it. Couldn't. Until that day. Justin sat back down next to me, and he never told anyone. How could I? My voice cracked. How could I tell anyone that we might have prevented it? That we were so busy, me with the companies, you with adjusting to being a new mother, that we forgot a simple follow-up appointment? We didn't forget, Justine said. We never made it in the first place. We were supposed to call and schedule it. Life got in the way. Life got in the way. 4 words that haunted me every single day since I found that note. I stood up and paced to the window. Needed to move. Needed to do something with the energy tearing through my body. Let me tell you about that time, I said. Let me tell you what I was doing that was so important I couldn't make a doctor's appointment for my son. Justine stayed quiet, letting me talk. It was 2002. PayPal was about to be sold to eBay for $1.5 billion. I just started SpaceX in a warehouse in El Segundo. Tesla was just an idea. Zip2 and PayPal had made me rich, but I wanted to do something meaningful, something that mattered. I laughed bitterly. Something that mattered. What could matter more than my own child? Elon! No, let me finish. And he turned to face her. You need to understand what I was like back then. What we were like. And I closed my eyes and went back to 2002, back to when Nevada was born, back to when I thought I had everything figured out. Nevada Alexander Musk was born on May 18, 2002 at 6:47 in the morning. 10 fingers, 10 toes, 7 pounds, 3 ounces, perfect. And I held him for the first time in that delivery room at Cedars-Sinai, and something shifted inside me. This tiny human, so helpless, so dependent on us for everything. I'd never felt that kind of responsibility before. He has your nose, Justin said from the hospital bed. She looked exhausted and radiant at the same time. Poor kid, I joked, but I couldn't stop staring at him. We named him Nevada because that's where we'd gotten married 2 years earlier. That quick ceremony at a little chapel, just us and 2 witnesses, perfect and simple, like we thought life would be. The first few weeks were a blur. Diapers and feedings and sleepless nights. Justine handled most of it because I was still going to the office every day. SpaceX needed me. We were designing the Falcon 1. My dream of making space accessible was finally happening. But every night I'd come home and hold Nevada. I'd talk to him about rockets and Mars in the future. Justin would laugh and say I was going to turn him into a space nerd. That's the plan, I'd say. Nevada was a good baby. Quiet, slept pretty well for a newborn. At his 6-week checkup, Dr. Morrison gave him a clean bill of health.
Whoa, mostly clean.
His breathing sounds a little irregular when he sleeps, Dr. Morrison said. Probably nothing, but let's have you come back in 2 weeks just to check. Irregular how? Justine asked. She was always more worried than me about health stuff. Just a slight pattern I noticed. could be completely normal development. I just want to be thorough. Should we be concerned? I asked. No. This is very common. We'd just like to follow up. Call Sandra at the front desk and schedule for 2 weeks from now. We said we would. But when we got to the car, my phone rang. It was Tom Mueller, my propulsion expert at SpaceX. We had a problem with the Merlin engine test. A big problem. I spent the whole drive home on the phone, troubleshooting. Justine was going to call and schedule the follow-up, but the Nevada started crying in the back seat. Then we got home and there were a million things to do. Feed the baby, change the baby, answer emails, return calls. The appointment slipped both our minds. 2 weeks became 3 weeks, then 4. We should call Dr. Morrison, Justine said one evening. Yeah, definitely, I agreed. But I was looking at engine diagrams on my laptop. We never called. Nevada seemed fine. He was growing, eating well, smiling at us. Why would we worry? On June 28th, 2002, Justine put Nevada down for his afternoon nap at 2 p.m. I was in my home office on a conference call with investors. SpaceX was burning through money fast. We needed another funding round. I was explaining our business model, trying to convince rich guys that private space exploration wasn't crazy. At 2:47 p.m., Justine screamed. I dropped the phone and ran. She was in the nursery, holding Nevada. His lips were blue. He wasn't breathing. Time did something weird. It slowed down and sped up at the same time. I grabbed him from her. His little body was limp. I ran to the car with Justine right behind me. I laid him in her lap and drove faster than I've ever driven. Breathe, baby, breathe, Justine kept saying. Please breathe. I ran every red light, honked at every car in my way, weaved through traffic like a race car driver. The hospital was 10 minutes away. I made it in 6. I carried him into the emergency room, screaming for help. Doctors and nurses swarmed us. They took Nevada from my arms. Someone pushed us into a waiting room while they worked on him. Justine collapsed into a chair, sobbing. I stood there frozen. My shirt was soaked with sweat. My hands were shaking. A doctor came out 20 minutes later. She looked tired. We got his heart beating again, she said. But he went without oxygen for approximately 10 minutes, maybe longer. We won't know the extent of brain damage until we run more tests. Brain damage? Justine's voice was tiny. We need to do a CT scan and an EEG. He's stable for now, but the next 48 hours are critical. They moved Nevada to the pediatric ICU at Orange County Children's Hospital. Machines breathed for him. Shoes and wires covered his tiny body. Monitors beeped constantly. The doctors explained what happened.
SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome.
No warning, no explanation. Just a baby who stops breathing during sleep. Could we have prevented it? I asked. The doctor hesitated. SIDS is unpredictable. Even with the best care, it can happen. That wasn't really an answer. For 5 days, we lived in that hospital. Justine barely left Nevada's room. I paced the hallways, making calls, trying to hold my companies together while my world fell apart. The test came back bad. Very bad. Nevada's brain showed almost no activity. The doctors used words like vegetative state and life support. On the 5th day, they sat us down for the conversation no parent should ever have. There's no realistic chance of recovery, the doctor said gently. His brain damage is too severe. Even if we keep him on life support indefinitely, he'll never breathe on his own, never open his eyes, never be aware of anything around him. So, what are you saying? I asked, even though I knew. We're saying you have a decision to make about his quality of life, about whether keeping him on machines is what's best for him. Justine broke down. Her mother held her while she sobbed. I stood up and walked out. I couldn't be in that room, couldn't hear those words, couldn't accept that my son, my perfect, beautiful son, was gone, and only his body remained. I walked the hospital halls for hours, past other families dealing with their own nightmares, past vending machines and empty waiting rooms and fluorescent lights that made everything look sickly. At 3 a.m., I went back to Nevada's room. The ICU was quieter at night, just the beeping of machines and the hiss of ventilators. I pulled a chair next to his bed and looked at his face. He looked like he was sleeping, like he might wake up any second, but he wouldn't. The doctors were clear about that. I took his tiny hand in mine, and I started talking. I opened my eyes. I was back in the hotel room with Justine. Tears were streaming down my face. You heard what I said that night, I whispered. Every word, she confirmed. I meant it. Every promise I made to him. Everything I built since then, SpaceX, Tesla, everything, it's all because of him. Justin nodded slowly. I know, I've always known. But Elon, there's something else. Something I discovered that you need to know about. I wiped my eyes. What? She picked up the journal again and turned to a page she'd marked with a sticky note. This is the part I couldn't write down, she said. This is why I came to find you after 15 years. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Justine sat back down, the journal open on her lap. After I found that note from Dr. Morrison, she said, I couldn't sleep. For days, I kept thinking about what we missed. That appointment, that one simple follow-up. Justine, we can't... Let me finish, please. Her voice was gentle but firm. I went down a dark path, blaming myself, blaming you, blaming the universe. I started seeing a therapist again, 3 sessions a week. And in one of those sessions, she asked me a question that changed everything. What question? She asked if you could go back and make that appointment. And if the doctor found something, and if Nevada had lived, would Elon still be Elon? I stared at her, not understanding. Would you have started SpaceX with the same intensity? Justine continued. Would you have pushed Tesla so hard? Would you have dedicated your entire life to making humanity multiplanetary? Or would you have been happy with PayPal money, spending time with your family, living a normal life? The question hit me like a punch to the gut. I don't know, I admitted. I do, Justine said softly. You wouldn't have. That night in the hospital when you made those promises to Nevada, that's when you became the Elon the world knows. Before that, you were brilliant and driven. After that, you were unstoppable, obsessed, willing to sacrifice everything. She was right. I knew she was right. So what are you saying? That Nevada dying was necessary? The word tasted bitter. No. God, no. She shook her head hard. I'm saying that we turned our tragedy into something. We took the worst thing that ever happened to us and we used it. You used it to fuel an empire. I used it to write 3 novels about grief and loss. Our other 5 sons exist because we didn't let the fear win. We chose to keep living. But the appointment might not have changed anything. Just interrupted. SIDS doesn't always have warning signs. That's why it's so terrifying. Dr. Morrison might have listened to Nevada's breathing and said everything was fine. We might have left that office feeling reassured, and 2 weeks later the same thing could have happened. Or it might have saved him. Yes! Or it might have saved him. We sat in that painful truth, the not knowing, the eternal what if. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. After all these years, Justine closed the journal and held it against her chest. Because I need you to read something. Something you said to Nevada that night. Something I wrote down word for word. She opened to a page near the middle and handed the journal to me. Read that section. The one I underlined? My hands shook as I took the journal. The page was dated July 2022, the night before we removed life support. Justine's handwriting covered the page, but one paragraph was underlined in red ink. Recent ink, not old. I read it aloud, my voice breaking. He told Nevada, I'm going to make humanity strong enough to survive anything. We're going to go to Mars. We're going to become a space-faring civilization. And when we do, when humans are living on multiple planets, no parent will ever have to feel as helpless as I feel right now. Because we'll have the technology to save anyone, anywhere. We'll have backup plans. Redundancy. We'll have beaten death itself, buddy. That's my promise to you. I stopped reading. Tears blurred the page. Do you remember saying that? Justin asked quietly. No, I remember being there. I remember crying. But the specific words, it's all foggy. Well, you said them, and for 22 years, I've carried those words. Your promise, your mission statement, and I've watched you keep that promise. Every rocket launch gets us closer to Mars. Every Tesla makes sustainable energy more real. Every Neuralink development brings us closer to beating death. She leaned forward, her eyes intense. You're doing it, Elon. You're keeping your promise to our dead son, and I needed you to know that I see it. I've always seen it. Something broke open in my chest. All the years of working myself to exhaustion, the sleepless nights, the panic attacks I never told anyone about, the relationships that failed because they couldn't stop working, the criticism from people who thought I was crazy. It all made sense now. It always had. But hearing Justine say she understood that she'd been watching and witnessing and knowing it meant everything. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm sorry I pushed you away. I'm sorry I couldn't grieve the way you needed me to. I'm sorry I turned into someone you couldn't recognize. I'm not. Her words surprised me. If you'd stayed the man you were before Nevada died, we might still be married. We might be living a comfortable life in Silicon Valley, but millions of people wouldn't have electric cars. Humanity wouldn't be on the verge of becoming multiplanetary. You wouldn't be changing the world. But we wouldn't have lost each other. We lost each other anyway. At least this way something good came from the pain. It was the saddest, truest thing I'd ever heard. My phone buzzed again and again, the outside world demanding my attention. I should let you go, Justine said, noticing. I know you have a million things to do. No. I put my phone on the table face down. Whatever it is can wait. You came here for a reason. You said there was something else, something you couldn't write down. Justine stood up and walked to her purse. She pulled out a folded piece of paper, old, yellowed at the edges. This, she said, is why I really came. She handed it to me. I unfolded it carefully. The paper was thin, like it might tear. There was a note.
Handwritten.
My handwriting. I didn't remember writing it. The date at the top, July. Where did you get this? I asked. My mother had it. She passed away last year. I was going through her things and found it in a box labeled Justine to keep safe. I had no idea she'd kept it. I read the note. The handwriting was messy, like I'd been shaking when I wrote it. For Nevada, may you explore stars I'll never reach. That's all it said, just one line. I don't remember this, I said. My mother told me years ago that she went to the hospital the night before we took Nevada off life support. She couldn't sleep, wanted to sit with him one more time. When she got there, she found you in the chapel. I vaguely remembered the hospital chapel, small room, uncomfortable chairs, a generic altar. You were alone. Justine continued. You had something in your hand. A small toy rocket, she said. You put it on the altar with that note. She didn't want to interrupt. She left you alone. But after you were gone, she took the note and the rocket. She kept them. I don't know why. Maybe she knew someday I'd need them. Where's the rocket? Justine reached into her purse again and pulled out a small plastic toy, worn and faded. A simple rocket ship, the kind you'd buy at any toy store. But it wasn't just a new rocket.
I took it from her hands and my breath caught.
This is... I couldn't finish. You recognize it? This is the design. My voice shook. This is the exact design I used for Falcon 1. Look at the fins. The nose cone. The proportions. I turned the toy over in my hands. It was cheap plastic, probably cost $3. But the design was perfect. Clean lines. Functional. Beautiful in its simplicity. I sketched this, I said more to myself than to Justine that night in the chapel. I had a pen. I drew modifications on the rocket. Made it better. Made it real. Justine was crying. Your first successful rocket. The one that saved SpaceX when everyone thought you'd fail. You designed it the night you said goodbye to your son. The room spun. I sat down hard on the couch. Everything connected. Every single thing. The Falcon 1 had almost bankrupted me. 3 failed launches. Everyone said I was done. But the 4th launch in 2008, 6 years after Nevada died, it worked. It reached orbit. It proved private spaceflight was possible. And the design came from this. From a cheap toy rocket I'd modified in a hospital chapel while my son lay dying upstairs. Justine, I said, looking up at her, why did you wait so long to show me this? She wiped her eyes and sat beside me. Because I wasn't ready. Because seeing you was too hard. Because every time I looked at you, I saw Nevada. I saw what we lost. I saw the life we could have had. And now, she took a deep breath. Now I'm ready to let go. I'm ready to stop carrying this alone. I'm ready to tell you that what you've built matters. That our son's life, even though it was only 10 weeks, changed the world. Because it changed you. I held the toy rocket in one hand and took Justine's hand with the other. For the first time in 15 years, we sat together without anger, without blame, without the crushing weight of unsaid things. Just 2 people who once loved each other, who made a beautiful boy, who lost him, and who survived. Thank you, I whispered, for keeping this, for bringing it to me, for remembering. Always, she said. I never stopped remembering. My phone lit up on the table. 7 missed calls. 12 texts. The world still needed me. But for right now, the world could wait. There's one more thing, Justine said softly. I looked at her. What? Turn the rocket over. Look at the bottom. I flipped the toy rocket over. There, in tiny letters scratched into the plastic, were 3 words I'd carved with my pen that night 22 years ago. For the stars. And suddenly I understood everything. Every sleepless night, every impossible deadline, every critic who said I was crazy, every rocket that exploded, every time someone told me to give up, every sacrifice. It was all for him. For Nevada. For those 3 words carved into cheap plastic. For the stars. I can't believe you kept this, I said, still holding the toy rocket like it might disappear. My mother knew it was important, Justine replied. She didn't understand why, she just knew. I traced the carved letters with my finger, my handwriting from 22 years ago. A different Elon, a broken Elon. An Elon who didn't know yet that he'd succeed. The 4th Falcon 1 launch, I said slowly, September 28th, 2008. When it finally worked. When we finally reached orbit, do you know what I did right after? Justin shook her head, and I went outside the control room, away from everyone celebrating. And I looked up at the sky and said, "We did it, buddy. We're going to stars." I hadn't thought about Nevada in months. I'd been so buried in work, so desperate to save the company. But in that moment, he was all I could think about.
You never told me that.
We weren't talking much by then. It was true. By 2008, our marriage was over. Divorced for a year. Communication through lawyers and scheduled kid pickups. I watched the launch online. Just to admit it, I cried. Happy tears and sad tears all mixed together. I wanted to call you, to say congratulations, to say I was proud. But I didn't know how. Too much time had passed. Too many walls between us. I wanted to call you too, I confessed. I almost did. My finger was on your name and my contacts. But I thought you'd moved on. Why would you care about a rocket? She smiled sadly. Because it was never just a rocket. It was always about Nevada. Everything you've ever done has been about him. My phone buzzed again. This time I glanced at it. Text from Gwen at SpaceX. Starship issue resolved. We're good for next week's test. Call when you can.
Relief flushed through me, then guilt. Here I was, worried about a rocket test while sitting with my ex-wife discussing our dead son.
You should answer that, Justin said, noticing my expression. It can wait. No, it can't. That's who you are, Elon. The work doesn't wait. It never has. And that's okay. I understand now. But I didn't pick up the phone. Not yet. You said there was one more thing, I reminded her. Something you couldn't write down. Is this it? The rocket? Justine's expression changed. Became more serious. More scared. No, that was part of it. But there's something else. My stomach tightened. What? She stood up and walked to the window again. Her back to me. When she spoke, her voice was small. I'm sick, Elon. The words hung in the air like smoke. What do you mean, sick? I found a lump 3 months ago. I ignored it for a while. Told myself it was nothing. But it kept growing. I finally went to the doctor last month. She turned around. Tears on her cheeks.
Breast cancer. Stage 2. It's treatable. Good prognosis.
But I need surgery and chemotherapy. The room tilted. Just in. I start treatment next week. 6 months of chemo, then surgery, then radiation. The doctors are optimistic. I have an 80% chance of full recovery. 80%. I repeated the number like it meant something. Like it was comforting. It wasn't. I'm telling you because she paused, choosing words carefully. Because I realized something when they diagnosed me. I realized I was still carrying so much anger, so much resentment about Nevada, about our marriage, about how everything fell apart. Justine, you have every right. Let me finish. She held up her hand. I was carrying all that, and then suddenly I'm facing my own mortality. And I thought, what if I die angry? What if I never make peace with what happened? What if I never tell you that I understand why you became who you became? She walked back to the couch and sat down close enough that our knees almost touched. That's why I came to Austin. That's why I tracked you down. Not just to show you the journal or the rocket, but to say I forgive you and to ask you to forgive me. Forgive you? For what? For not being strong enough to stay. For leaving when you needed someone to understand. For taking the boys and making everything harder. For all the angry emails and difficult conversations. For not seeing that you were grieving too, just in a different way. Tears streamed down my face. I didn't wipe them away. I forgive you, I said. And I'm sorry, I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you. I'm sorry I buried myself in work. I'm sorry I made you feel alone. We hugged then. Really hugged. Not the awkward divorced parents hug at kid pickups. A real hug. The kind where you feel the other person's heartbeat. The kind that says more than words. When we pulled apart, Justine picked up the journal again. I need you to read one more entry, she said. The last one. The one from last week. She handed me the journal, opened to the final page. The page dated October. I started reading it earlier, but she'd stopped me. Now she wanted me to finish. I looked down at her handwriting. Dear Nevada, today you would be 22 years old. I imagined so many things about who you'd be, but here's what I know for certain. Your father kept his promise. He's changing the world. He's taking humanity to the stars. And it's all because of you. Every rocket that launches carries your name, even if nobody else knows it. Every impossible thing your father accomplishes is him saying, this is for you, buddy. This is for you. I found something recently, something that made me understand your father in a way I never did before. A toy rocket, a note, 3 words carved in plastic for the stars. And I realized that some people grieve by falling apart. Others grieve by building empires. Your father built an empire. You built several, and they're all monuments to you. I'm writing this entry because I need to make peace before I start my own battle. The doctors say I'll probably be fine. Probably. That word is doing a lot of work. But either way, I need to tell your father something I should have said years ago. I see you. I see what you're doing. I see why you're doing it. And I'm proud of you. Nevada, if I don't survive this treatment, if these are some of my best words, I want them to be about love, about forgiveness, about understanding that people grieve differently, and that's okay. Your father didn't abandon me. He ran towards something because running away hurt too much, and I don't blame him anymore. Tell him that for me, baby. Somehow, some way, tell him that Mom understands now. Oh, my love, forever and always, Mom. I closed the journal. My hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped it. Justin, I said, my voice barely working. You're gonna survive. You have to survive. That's not up to me, she said gently. It's up to my body and luck and medical science. But I needed you to know, in case something goes wrong, that I don't hate you. I never really did. I just missed the man you were before. But that man had to die for this version to exist. And this version is changing humanity's future. And I don't care about humanity's future, I said firstly. Not right now. Right now I care about you. What do you need? Best doctors? Experimental treatments? I'll pay for anything. I'll call anyone. Elon. She put her hand on mine. I have good doctors. I have good insurance. I don't need your money. Then what do you need? She smiled. Sad and beautiful and heartbreaking. I need you to come with me to Nevada's grave. The request hit me like a physical blow. I haven't been there since the funeral, I admitted. I know. You told me once that you couldn't face it, that seeing his name on a headstone would make it too real. She was right. I'd said that years ago during one of our last real conversations before the divorce was final. I go every year, Justine continued. On his birthday and on the anniversary of his death, I bring flowers. I talk to him. I tell him about his brothers, about my books, about life. You do? Someone has to visit him. Someone has to remember him as a person, not just as the tragedy that changed us. Guilt crashed over me. While I've been building companies and changing the world for Nevada, Justin had been actually visiting him, actually sitting with him, actually treating him like the son he was. I want to go before I start chemo, Justine said. I want to say goodbye properly, just in case. And I want you there with me. When? Tomorrow. Forest Lawn Memorial Park, 10 a.m. His grave is under an oak tree in the children's section. She'd memorized the location. Of course she had. I'll be there, I promised. You won't cancel. You won't do work. Get in the way. I picked up my phone, opened my calendar, cleared everything scheduled for tomorrow, messaged Maria, cancel all Saturday meetings. Personal emergency. We'll explain Monday. I showed Justine the screen. I'll be there, I repeated. I promise. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for years. Thank you, she whispered. We sat in silence for a moment. Outside, Austin's nightlife hummed, cars honking, people laughing, the world spinning on, completely unaware that my entire understanding of my life had just shifted. Can I keep this? I asked, holding up the toy rocket. It's yours. It was always yours. I slipped it in my pocket, right next to my phone, next to all the urgent messages and missed calls and demands on my time. I should go, I said, though. I didn't want to. Let you rest.
Elon?
Justine called as I stood up. One more thing. Yeah? You're gonna want to prepare yourself for tomorrow, for seeing his grave. It's gonna be harder than you think. I nodded. I know. But, I didn't know. I couldn't know. Not yet. I drove back to my house in Austin, but I didn't go inside. I sat in the car in the driveway for 20 minutes, staring at nothing. The toy rocket sat on the passenger seat. Such a small thing. Plastic and faded paint. But it felt heavy, like it carried the weight of 22 years. My phone had stopped buzzing. Everyone had given up trying to reach me. That almost never happened. I picked up the rocket and turned it over. For the stars. 3 words that had dictated my entire adult life, and I'd forgotten I'd even written them. Finally, I went inside. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I bought it last year. Modern, minimal, efficient. Nothing like the warm, chaotic home Justin and I had shared in Bel Air when Nevada was born. This place felt like a hotel. Clean and empty. And I poured myself a whiskey. I rarely drank, but tonight seemed to require it. I sat on the couch and pulled out my phone, opened my photos, scrolled back, way back, past rocket launches and factory openings and important meetings. Past my other kids at various ages, back to There weren't any photos from that year. We didn't take pictures the way people do now. No smartphones. Just a digital camera we barely remembered to use. But there were 3 photos of Nevada. One from the hospital minutes after he was born. Justine holding him, exhausted and glowing. Me standing next to the bed, grinning like an idiot. One from his nursery home. Nevada in a white onesie, sleeping in his crib, peaceful. One from 2 days before he died. Me holding him on the couch. He was awake, looking up at me with those serious baby eyes. I was looking down at him and the camera caught something on my face I'd forgotten. Pure love, uncomplicated joy. I stared at that photo for a long time. That Elon didn't know what was coming. Didn't know that in 48 hours his world would shatter. Didn't know he'd become someone else entirely. I zoomed in on Nevada's face. Tried to see him at 22. Tried to imagine him alive. But I couldn't. He was frozen at 10 weeks old forever. My phone rang. I almost didn't answer, but it was Griffin, one of my sons with Justine, 17 years old now. Hey, I answered. Dad, you okay? Mom called and said she saw you today. So Justine had told him. I wondered what else she'd said. Yeah, I'm fine. How are you? I'm good, but Dad, seriously, Mom sounded weird. She said you guys talked about stuff, old stuff. She didn't give details, but he paused. Is everything okay? With her, I mean? I didn't know about the cancer. She hadn't told the boys yet. Everything's okay, I lied. We just had an overdue conversation. Nothing to worry about. Are you sure? Because she sounded like she'd been crying. Smart kid. Too smart. We talked about Nevada, I said quietly. Silence on the other end. My sons knew about their older brother who died. We told them when they were old enough to understand. But we never talked about him much. It hurt too much. Oh, Griffin said. That's heavy. Yeah. Do you want to talk about it? When did my kid become old enough to ask me that? When did he become the one checking on me? Not right now, I admitted. But thank you for asking. Okay, well I'm here. If you need me, I mean it, Dad. I know. I love you.
Love you too.
After we hung up, I sat in the dark house for another hour. And I did something I hadn't done in years. I Googled SIDS research. Pages and pages of studies, statistics, theories, risk factors, prevention strategies. The medical community knew more now than they did in 2002, but not much more. SIDS was still mostly a mystery, still mostly unpredictable, still killing babies without warning. I found myself on a parent support forum. People sharing their stories, their grief, their guilt, their what if. One mother wrote, "My son would be 15 today. I wonder who he'd be, what music he'd like, if he'd be tall like his dad." The wondering never stops. Another parent's, people say it gets easier, it doesn't, you just get better at carrying it. I never looked at these forums before. I never wanted to see myself in other people's pain, but now I couldn't stop reading. All these parents, all these lost children, all these families shattered by something nobody could control. And then I saw it, that post from 5 years ago. I found my son's pediatrician notes from his last checkup. The doctor had mentioned some concerns, recommended a follow-up. We never went. Work got busy. Life got in the way. Now I can't stop thinking, what if we'd gone? Would he still be here? Does anyone else carry this? Am I alone in this guilt? The responses were all some version of "it's not your fault." SIDS happens even with the best care. You couldn't have known. But one response stood out. I'm a pediatrician. I've been practicing for 30 years. I've lost 3 patients to SIDS. In one case, I'd seen the baby 2 days before. Perfect health. No warning signs. Sometimes there's nothing to catch. Sometimes it just happens. The guilt you feel is natural, but it's not based on reality. You didn't kill your baby by missing an appointment. SIDS killed your baby. Full stop. I read that response 10 times. It should have helped. It didn't, because I'd never know. None of us would ever know. That's the torture of it. I closed my laptop and looked at the toy rocket again. Justin was right. I'd built monuments to Nevada, SpaceX, Tesla, everything, but I'd never just sat with him, never visited his grave, never let myself feel the full weight of losing him, because I was too busy trying to make his death mean something. What kind of father does that? I thought about tomorrow, about standing at my son's grave for the first time in 22 years, about seeing his name carved in stone. My chest tightened, panic rising. I grabbed my phone and almost texted Justine to cancel. Made up some excuse. Emergency at SpaceX, critical Tesla issue, anything. But I didn't. Instead, I texted, "I'll be there, 10 a.m. I promise." She responded immediately, "Thank you." Then a minute later, "It's gonna be okay, we'll do it together." I wanted to believe her. I went to bed but didn't sleep. My mind kept spinning. Kept going back to that hospital chapel in 2002. kept trying to remember details that were lost to time and trauma. Had I really carved those words into the toy rocket? Had I really made those promises? Or had grief twisted my memories? At 4 a.m., I gave up on sleep. I got up and went to my home office, pulled out old files, archives from 2002, but kept everything, even though I never looked at it. Yeah, I found a folder labeled SpaceX Early Designs. Inside were dozens of sketches, rocket designs, engine configurations, launch trajectories, all from late 2000. And there in the middle of the pile was a sketch dated July 3rd, the day after Nevada died. It was the Falcon 1, not fully developed, just a basic concept. And unmistakably, the rocket that would eventually save my company and prove private spaceflight was possible. In the margin, in my handwriting, barely legible, make it count. That's what I'd been telling myself, make it count. Make his death count for something, turn tragedy into purpose. But had I gone too far? Had I sacrificed too much? My marriage, my relationship with my other kids, my own mental health, in pursuit of making it count? I didn't know. I still don't know. At 8 a.m. I showered and dressed. Black jeans, black shirt, no logos, no Tesla or SpaceX branding, just me. I put the toy rocket in my pocket, grabbed my keys. Maria called as I was walking to the car. Elon, I got your message about canceling today, but Gwen really needs to brief you on... Not today, Maria.
But it's important. The FAA approval for next week's launch.
Tell Gwen I'll call her tonight. Today is not negotiable. Silence. Then, okay, is everything all right? You can't promise that. No, but I can promise I'll be here. For the treatments, for the recovery, for whatever you need. Tears pooled in her eyes. Why? After everything. After the divorce and the arguments and the years of barely speaking. Why now? I thought about how to answer. About what was true. Because you showed me something I'd forgotten, I said finally. You showed me that Nevada wasn't just fuel for my ambition. He was a person, a son, someone worth remembering. Not just for what he inspired, but for who he was. And you've been doing that alone for 22 years. I owe you. I owe us. Rebecca came back before Justine could respond. She started the IV drip, clear liquid flowing into Justine's arm, poison that would hopefully kill the cancer faster than it hurt her. Here we go, Rebecca said cheerfully, you're doing great. For the next 4 hours, we sat together, sometimes talking, sometimes watching TV, sometimes just sitting in silence. Justine told me about her novels, how writing helped her process grief, how her next book was about a woman who loses everything but finds herself. I told her about Mars, about the Starship program, about my genuine belief that humanity's future depended on becoming multiplanetary. You really think we'll do it, she asked, in our lifetime? Yes, 10 years, maybe 15. The first permanent settlement on Mars. And Nevada's promise will be fulfilled. His promise will never be fulfilled,
Yep, completely.
but we'll be close. Around hour 3, Justine started feeling sick. Not terrible, but uncomfortable. Rebecca brought medication, adjusted the IV. This is normal, she assured us. It usually gets worse over the next few days, then improves. Justine closed her eyes. Can't wait. I held her hand. She didn't pull away. When the treatment finally finished, Rebecca removed the IV and gave Justine a folder full of instructions. Rest, hydrate, don't be a hero. If you feel awful, that's normal. If you feel worse than awful, call us immediately. We walked out together. Justine looked drained, gray, like the treatment had aged her 5 years and 4 hours. I'll drive you home, I said. My car, I'll have someone pick it up. You shouldn't drive right now. She didn't argue, too tired to fight. I helped her into my car. She leaned back and closed her eyes. Thank you, she whispered, for being here, for staying. Always. I drove her back to her house in Malibu, a place I'd never been. She'd bought it after our divorce with money from her books. Modern. Right on the beach. Beautiful. I helped her inside. The house was quiet, decorated with her taste books everywhere, art on the walls, comfortable furniture. You should rest, I said.
I know.
But first, she walked to a bookshelf and pulled down a framed photo. Nevada. The same picture I had on my phone. Him looking up at me with those serious eyes. I keep this out, she said. So I remember. So he's always here. Do you ever put up the boys' pictures? Of course, but Nevada gets his own frame, his own space. He earned that. She handed me the photo. I stared at my son's face. I'm putting one up too, I decided. In my office at SpaceX. Right where I can see it every day. Justine smiled. You like that? having a view of the rockets. I helped her to her bedroom, made sure she had water and her medications. Call me if you need anything, I said, anytime. I mean it. I will. And Elon, same time next week? Same time next week? I left her there to rest. Drove back toward Austin, but I didn't go straight home. I stopped at a photo printing shop, had them print the picture of Nevada 8x10. Professional quality, framed in simple black wood. Then I drove to SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne. My team was surprised to see me. Elon, we didn't expect you today, Quinn said. Just stopping by. How'd the emergency go? Handled. We had a valve issue on Starship, but the team fixed it. We're still on schedule for next week. Good, I need to do something in my office. Give me a few minutes. I walked to my office, closed the door, looked around at the walls covered with mission patches, photos of launches, engineering diagrams. I cleared a space on the wall behind my desk, right where I'd see it every time I sat down. I hung Nevada's picture. My son, I have firstborn, the reason for everything. I stood there for a long time, just looking at his face. I'm sorry it took me so long, I said quietly. But you're here now, and you're staying. I knocked on the door. Gwen poked her head in. Everything okay? I nodded toward the picture. My son, Nevada, he died when he was 10 weeks old. And Gwen's expression softened. I didn't know. I'm sorry. Most people don't know. I didn't talk about him, but I should have. He matters. He's why we do this. She stepped closer, looking at the photo. He's beautiful. Yeah, he was. Is this why you've been different lately? More present? Had I been different? I guess I had. I visited his grave for the first time in 22 years, I explained. Realized I've been running from grief instead of facing it. Trying to change that. Wayne nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I think that's brave. Facing the hard stuff. Brave or just overdue? Both. After she left, I sat at my desk and really looked at the picture. Nevada's eyes staring back at me, trusting, innocent, unaware that his life would be so short, but his impact so long. My phone buzzed. Text from Justine, thank you again for today. Feeling rough, but glad I'm not alone in this. Me, you're never alone. Not anymore. Get some rest. Justine, one more thing. Next Saturday with the boys. Can we do it at Nevada's grave? I want them to really understand. To meet their brother properly. I hesitated. That would be intense. Raw. Difficult. But he was right. Yes, that's perfect. I'll arrange everything. Justine, thank you for all of this, for finally coming back. Me, thank you for waiting for me to be ready. I put my phone down and looked at Nevada's picture again. Next Saturday, your brothers are coming to meet you, I said. They're going to know your story, the real story. Not just that you died, but that you lived, that you mattered, that you changed everything. I felt something shift inside me. Not healing grief doesn't heal, but acceptance, understanding. Nevada's life was 10 weeks long, but his story was still being written. In every rocket launch, in every innovation, in every moment, I chose to be present instead of absent. And now, finally, I was telling that story the right way. Not as a tragedy I overcame, but as a son I loved. Still love. Will always love. The intercom buzzed. Elon, we have the propulsion meeting in 5 minutes. I'll be right there. I stood up, gave Nevada's picture one more look, and went back to work. But this time I wasn't running from the past. I was carrying it with me, where it belonged. Saturday came with perfect Los Angeles weather, clear blue sky, gentle breeze, the kind of day that makes you forget anything bad could ever happen. I picked up Griffin, Kai, Saxon, and Damien early that morning. They piled into the car, confused but curious. Justine had asked them to come, but hadn't told them where or why. Dad, what's going on? Griffin asked from the passenger seat. He was 17 now, tall like me, with Justine's eyes. What was really mysterious about today? We're gonna visit your brother, I said simply. Silence in the car. They all knew I meant Nevada. We go to his grave? Saxon asked from the back. He was 15, the quietest of them. Yes, your mom and I want to talk to you about him, about us, about some things that matter.
Is Mom okay? Damien, the youngest of 13, sounded worried. She's been acting weird lately.
I glanced at him in the rearview mirror. He looked so much like me, it was startling. Same intensity, same inability to sit still. She's dealing with some health stuff, I said carefully. She'll explain. But she's gonna be okay. The rest of the drive was quiet. The boys sensed this was important, serious, not just another divorced parents trying to get along moment. Justine was already at the cemetery when we arrived, standing by Nevada's grave, wearing a simple black dress. She looked better than she had after chemo on Tuesday. still tired, but present. The boys got out slowly, uncertain. Hi guys, Justine said, hugging each of them. Thanks for coming. Mom, what's this about? Kai asked. He was 16. I was the direct one. Come sit, she said, gesturing to the grass around Nevada's grave. Please. We all sat in a circle. Nevada's headstone in the center. The toy rocket still there, faded from a week of sun and dew. Justine looked at me and nodded together. Your father and I wanted to talk to you about Nevada. Justine began. Really talk to you, not just the basic facts you already know? We know he died from SIDS, Griffin said. When he was a baby, it was really sad. It was more than sad, I said. It destroyed us. It broke your mother and me in different ways, and we never really talked about it, with each other or with you. That was a mistake. I pulled out Justine's journal. The boy stared at it. Your mom kept his journal, for when Nevada was born until now. 22 years of memories and thoughts and grief. She showed it to me last week, for the first time. Why now? Saxon asked quietly. Justin took a breath, because I have breast cancer. I started chemotherapy. Well, I already started, last Tuesday. Your dad came with me. The boys' faces went pale. Damien started crying immediately. Mom! Griffin's voice cracked. I'm going to be okay, Justine said firmly. The doctors are optimistic, but it made me realize that, I've been carrying so much alone. Pain about Nevada, anger about the divorce, guilt about 1,000 things. And I don't want to carry it alone anymore. I want you to know the truth about your brother, about your father, about us. I opened the journal to the entry from that last night, the one where Justine described hearing me talk to Nevada. Let me read you something, I said. I read him the entire entry about the hospital, about the promises I made, about the toy rocket, and the words carved into it. By the time I finished, all 4 boys were crying. So that's why you work so hard, Griffin said. That's why you're always pushing for Mars and electric cars and all of it, because of him. Yes, I made promises to your brother that I've spent my whole life trying to keep, but in the process, I failed at other promises. To your mother, to you, I wasn't present. I let work consume me. I used grief as fuel, instead of feeling it. We thought you just didn't care, Kai admitted, about us, about family stuff. We thought work was more important to you than we were. The words stabbed through me, true and terrible. I'm so sorry, I said, my voice breaking. You are important. You're the most important thing. I just didn't know how to show it. I didn't know how to be vulnerable, how to feel things without falling apart. So I built rockets instead. I built companies. I built everything except the relationships that mattered. Justin reached over and took my hand. But he's trying now. He came to Nevada's grave with me. He sat through my chemo. He's here today, being honest with you. That's growth. That's change. Why didn't you ever bring us here before? Damon asked, looking at the headstone. To meet him?
Justine and I looked at each other.
Good question. Painful question. Because I was afraid, Justine said. Afraid it would hurt you. Afraid you'd feel like you were replacement children. Like we only had you because we lost him. Is that true? Saxon asked. Are we replacements? No, I said immediately. Absolutely not. You exist because your mother and I decided to choose life after death. To choose hope after tragedy. To choose love even when we're terrified. You're not replacements. You're proof that grief doesn't have to win. Griffin stood up and walked to the headstone. Touched the carved letters. Nevada Alexander Musk. He read aloud. He has my last name. He's my brother. I wish I could have met him. Me too, Kai said, standing next to him. Saxon and Damien joined them. 4 boys standing around their brother's grave. 5 sons total. 1 in the ground. 4 above it. Tell us about him, Griffin said. Not about how he died, about how he lived. What was he like? Justin smiled through tears. He was quiet, observant. He'd watch everything with these serious eyes, like he was trying to figure out the world. He had your dad's intensity even as a baby. He had your mom's beautiful face, I added, and he'd grip my thumb so tight when I held him, like he was holding on to life with everything he had. Did he cry a lot? Damien asked. Not really, Justine said. He was an easy baby. That's what made it so shocking. There was no warning, no signs, just gone. We spent the next hour there, telling stories, sharing memories, making Nevada real to his brothers who never got to meet him. Told them about the night in the chapel, about the promises, about how SpaceX nearly failed multiple times, but I kept going because of those promises. Justine told them about the journal, about writing to Nevada for 22 years, about how grief changes but never leaves. Can we read it? Griffin asked, gesturing to the journal. The whole thing? Justine looked surprised and thoughtful. Yes, when you're ready. When you want to understand more about that time, about us. It's yours as much as it's mine. I want to start coming here, Kai said suddenly. To visit, to talk to him. Is that too weird? Not weird at all, Justine said. I come all the time. You're always welcome to join me. I'll come too, Saxon said. Me three, Damien added. Griffin looked at me. What about you, Dad? Are you going to keep coming? I looked at Nevada's grave, at the toy rocket, at the headstone bearing my son's name. Yes, I'm going to keep coming. Like, not as often as your mom. She's better at this than me, but regularly. He deserves that. You all deserve that. Can we bring things? Damien asked. Like, can I bring a drawing? I draw rockets sometimes. I could draw one for him. My chest tightened. He would love that. We sat there until noon, just being together, being a family in the strangest, saddest, most beautiful way. Finally, Justine stood up. I need to get home, rest before the next treatment on Tuesday. The boys hugged her carefully like she might break. We love you, Mom, Griffin said, and we're gonna be there for all of it. The treatments, the surgery, everything. We're a team, Kai added. Justine cried happy tears. I love you guys so much. As we walked back to the cars, Damien hung back with me. Dad, he said quietly. Yeah, buddy. I'm glad you told us about Nevada, about everything. It makes you make more sense. I laughed despite the tears. I make more sense. Yeah, like I always wondered why you worked so hard, why nothing was ever enough. Now I get it. You're trying to keep a promise to your son. That's actually really beautiful. I pulled him into a hug, held him tight. I love you, I said. No, I don't say it enough, but I do. So much. I know, Dad. I love you too. At the cars, Justine pulled me aside. Thank you, she said, for today. For being here, for being honest with them. Thank you for not letting me run anymore. We're gonna be okay, she said. All of us. Even if the cancer comes back, even if life throws more at us, we're gonna be okay. Because we're finally doing this together. Together, I agreed. I watched her drive away with Saxon and Damien. Griffin and Kai came with me. On the drive back, Griffin said, Dad, can I ask you something? Always. Do you think Nevada would be proud of you? Of what you've built? I thought about it. I really thought about it. I don't know, I said honestly, maybe you think I work too much. Maybe he'd wish I'd been a better father to his brothers. But I hope he'd understand why. I hope he'd see that I was trying to make his life matter. That I was trying to turn tragedy into purpose. I think he'd be proud, Kai said from the back seat. I think he'd see SpaceX and Tesla and everything you've done, and he'd know his big brother was trying to save the world. I'm not trying to save the world, I corrected. I'm trying to keep a promise. That's all. Just keeping a promise to my son. Griffin smiled. Same thing, Dad. Maybe he was right. We drove home in comfortable silence. And for the first time in 22 years, I felt like I could breathe. Nevada was gone. That would never change. The grief would never fully heal. But I wasn't running anymore. I wasn't hiding behind working walls and impossible goals. I was facing it, feeling it, carrying it with me like Justine had carried that journal. And somehow, that made everything lighter. My phone buzzed. Text from Justine, the boys just told me they want to start a foundation in Nevada's name for SITS research and family support. They want to help other families going through what we went through. My vision blurred. Me, let's do it. Whatever they need. I'll match every dollar they raise. Justine, he'd love that. All of them working together for him. Me, they already brought us back together. Might as well keep going. Justine, see you Tuesday. 8 a.m. Don't forget the good coffee. Me, never. I put my phone away and looked at my sons in the rearview mirror. Griffin and Kai talking quietly about the foundation. Already planning, already making their brother's life mean something. That's what Nevada did. He brought us together, made us better, made us remember what mattered. 10 weeks of life, 22 years of impact, and it wasn't over yet. Not even close. That was the end of Elon's journey with Justine and Nevada, a powerful reminder that even the most successful people carry deep pain, and that the healing often comes from facing what we've been running from. I'm curious, where are you listening from right now? Drop your location in the comments below. I love hearing from viewers around the world. If this touched your heart the way it touched mine, please hit that like button. It really helps spread these meaningful messages to more people who need to hear them. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss videos like this one. Real, emotional accounts that remind us what truly matters in life. Finally, please share this video with your friends and family. Sometimes the people we love are carrying burdens in silence, just like Elon and Justine did for so many years. Spreading awareness and kindness can make all the difference. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. No, but it will be. I hung up and drove to Los Angeles, 3 hours on I-10. Time to think. Time to prepare. But how do you prepare to visit your dead child's grave after 22 years? I arrived at Forest Lawn Memorial Park at 9:45 a.m. Early. I sat in the parking lot staring at the entrance. Beautiful place as far as cemeteries go. Rolling hills, oak trees, peaceful. The kind of place you'd want to rest forever. The kind of place no parent should ever have to visit. At 9:55, a car pulled up next to mine, just in. She got out slowly, looked tired, older in the daylight. The cancer already taking its toll even before treatment started. I got out too. We stood in the parking lot, both afraid to take the first step. Ready, she asked. No, but let's go anyway. She led the way, through the gates, past hundreds of graves, names and dates, and epitaphs, lives reduced to carved stone. The children's section was in the back corner. Smaller headstones, shorter lives, too many of them. Justine stopped in front of an oak tree. He's here, she said softly. He looked down. The headstone was simple, gray granite, small, just big enough for the words carved into it. Nevada Alexander Musk, May 18, 2002, July 3, 2002. Forever loved forever, missed forever ours. I dropped to my knees. All the air left my lungs. 22 years of running, at building, of distracting myself with impossible goals and relentless work. All of it shattered in an instant. My son was here, in the ground, under this stone. Done. Really, truly, finally gone. I started sobbing. Not quiet tears. Loud, ugly, desperate sobs. The kind that come from somewhere deep and broken. Justine knelt beside me, put her arm around my shoulders. I know, she whispered. I know. We stayed like that for a long time. 2 parents, 1 grave, 22 years of grief, finally shared. The morning sun filtered through the oak tree above us. Birds sang somewhere nearby. The world kept moving, completely indifferent to our pain. I touched the headstone. The granite was cool under my fingers. I traced the letters of his name. Nevada Alexander Musk, my firstborn son, my baby boy, reduced to dates and words carved in stone. I'm sorry, he whispered to the grave. I'm so sorry I haven't come. I'm sorry I abandoned you here. You didn't abandon him, Justine said gently. You just grieved differently. I didn't grieve at all. I ran. Running is a form of grieving. I looked at her. Her eyes were red, but clear. She'd cried all her tears here over the years. This place didn't break her anymore. She'd made peace with it. How do you do it? I asked. How do you come here and not fall apart? I did fall apart. For years. The first few times I came, I couldn't leave. I'd sit here for hours just talking to him, telling him everything. Eventually it got easier. Not easy, just easier. She stood up and brushed off her knees. Walked to the other side of the grave where fresh flowers sat in a built-in vase. I have a standing order with the florist, she explained. Fresh flowers every week, white roses. They were blooming in her garden when he was born. Of course she did. Of course she'd thought of that. Well, had been launching rockets. She'd been making sure our son had flowers. The guilt was crushing. Justine, stop. She interrupted. Stop apologizing. Stop feeling guilty. You did what you could. What you needed to survive. There's no wrong way to grieve a child. But you needed me after you died. You needed me to be there, to talk about it, to feel it with you. And I couldn't. I just shut down. She sat on the grass, leaning against the oak tree, gestured for me to sit too. I did, facing the grave. You want to know something? Justine said. I was angry at you for years. Furious. You went back to work 3 days after the funeral. 3 days, Elon. I was home, staring at an empty nursery, and you were in meetings. I know! I remember. But my therapist asked me something. She asked, what would you have wanted Elon to do? And I realized I didn't have an answer. Stay home and cry with me? That wasn't who you were. Talk about feelings? You didn't have that skill set. So what could you have done differently? I could have tried. You did try, just not in ways I could see at the time. She pulled a blade of grass, twirling it between her fingers. You created jobs for thousands of people. You pushed technology forward. You gave humanity hope for the future. That was your way of trying. It wasn't enough. Maybe enough for our marriage, but it was enough for the world. We sat in silence. A breeze rustled the oak leaves. Somewhere nearby, another family was visiting a grave. Quiet voices, soft crying. Death was everywhere in this place, but somehow it felt peaceful. Like maybe dying wasn't the worst thing. Maybe the worst thing was being forgotten. Nevada wouldn't be forgotten. Not by us. Tell me about the visits, I said. What do you talk to him about? Justine smiled. Everything. His brothers, mostly. How Griffin got into MIT. How Saxon wants to be a filmmaker. How Damien is exactly like you. Brilliant and stubborn and impossible. And I tell him about my books. About good movies I've seen. About life. Does it help? Talking to him? Yes. It makes him feel real. Not just a tragedy or a memory. A person. My son. I looked at the grave again, tried to imagine Nevada at 22. What would we talk about? I don't know what to say to him, I admitted. Start with hello. It sounded simple, it wasn't. I took a deep breath. Hi, Nevada. It's Dad. I know I should have come sooner. I know I should have been here all along. I was scared. I was still scared. But I'm here now. The words felt awkward, forced, like I was talking to you. But I kept going. Your mom has been taking good care of you. She's amazing, you know. Strong and brave and everything I wasn't. She visits you, she brings flowers, she remembers you as a person, not just a concept. Justine's hand found mine. Squeezed it. I built things for you, I continued. Rockets and cars and companies. I told myself it was all for you, to make your life mean something. But the truth is, I was just trying to outrun the pain. And you can't outrun pain. It's always there, waiting. My voice cracked. I miss you. I miss who you had been. I miss teaching you about space and science. I miss watching you grow up. I miss everything we'll never have. Justine was crying again. So was I. But I want you to know something, I said, pulling the toy rocket from my pocket. I kept my promise. The one I made in the hospital. We're going to Mars. Humans are going to become a multiplanetary species. And when we do, when the first child is born on another planet, I'll think of you, because you started all of this. You gave me the reason to try. I placed the toy rocket on the grave, right in front of the headstone. For the stars, I whispered. Just like I wrote, for you. Justine stared at the rocket. You're leaving it here? You should have it. It was always meant for him. She nodded slowly, understanding. We sat there for another hour, sometimes talking, sometimes silent, just being present, being parents, being together in grief. Finally, Justine checked her phone. I should get going. I have a doctor's appointment at 3, right? The cancer, the treatment, the reason she tracked me down in the first place. What time does chemo start? I asked as we stood up. Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Do you want company? I could come. Sit with you. She looked surprised. You do that? Of course I would. But your schedule, screw my schedule. You're about to go through hell. The least I can do is be there. Tears filled her eyes again. Thank you. That would mean a lot. We walked back to the parking lot together. Slower this time. Less afraid. At our cars, Justine turned to me. There's one more thing I need to ask you, she said. Something I've been thinking about since I was diagnosed. Anything. She hesitated, choosing words carefully. If something goes wrong, if the treatment doesn't work, if I don't make it, don't say that. Elon, listen, I need to say this. Her voice was firm. If I don't make it, I need you to do something for me. My chest tightened. What? I need you to tell the boys about today, about Nevada, about the journal, and the rocket, and the promises. They need to know their father isn't just a workaholic billionaire. They need to know you're a man who lost his son and turned that loss into purpose. Justine, I need you to come here more often, to visit Nevada. Not every week like me, but sometimes. Let him know he's not forgotten. Let yourself remember he existed. I will, I promise. And one more thing. She reached into her purse and pulled out the journal. I want you to have this. Keep it. Read it when you need to remember. But it's yours. It's ours. It always was. I just held on to it until you were ready. I took the journal. It felt heavier than before. Thank you, I said. For everything. For coming to Austin. For bringing me here. For helping me face this. Thank you for showing up. For being brave enough to feel something. We hugged. A real hug. It's the kind that says goodbye and hello at the same time. I'll see you Tuesday, I said. 8 a.m. I'll bring coffee. Good coffee. Not that terrible SpaceX break room stuff. And I laughed. First real laugh in days. Deal. She got in her car. I got in mine. We sat there for a moment, engines running, both reluctant to leave this sacred place. Finally, she drove away. I watched her car disappear down the winding cemetery road. I looked back at Nevada's grave one more time. The toy rocket sat on the stone, bright plastic against gray granite. Out of place and perfect at the same time. I'll be back, I said quietly. I promise. For real this time? I drove away from Forest Lawn feeling lighter. Not happy. Not healed. But less broken. Like maybe I could carry this grief without it crushing me. My phone had 17 missed calls. 32 texts. The world demanding my attention again. But instead of answering, I called Griffin. Dad? Everything okay?
Yeah.
I just visited your brother. Nevada? I wanted you to know. Silence. And really, I didn't think you ever went there. I didn't. But I should have. I'm gonna do better. That's good, Dad. I'm glad. Me too. Listen, I want to talk to you and your brothers, all of you, together, about Nevada, about a lot of things. Would next weekend work? Yeah, sure. Is this because of whatever you and Mom talked about? Yes, but, well, I'll tell you in person. All of you. Okay, I'll text the group chat. Thanks, buddy. I love you. Love you too, Dad. After we hung up, I sat in my car in a random parking lot, staring at Justine's journal on the passenger seat. 22 years of her private thoughts, her pain, her memories, her love for a son who barely got to exist. I opened it to a random page, an entry from Nevada. Your brother Damien asked about you today.
He's 5.
He wanted to know if you're in heaven. I told him I think you're everywhere. In the stars Dad launches toward, in the flowers that bloom in spring, in every moment of joy we manage to find. He said that sounds nice. I hope he's right. I hope you're everywhere. I hope you see us. I hope you know you're loved. I closed the journal and pressed it against my chest. Thank you, I whispered to Shin, even though she couldn't hear me. Thank you for remembering when I couldn't. Thank you for being strong when I was weak. Thank you for loving him enough for both of us. My phone rang. Maria again. This time I answered. Hey, Elon, thank God. I've been trying to reach you all morning. We have a situation with Maria. I need you to block out Tuesday morning on my calendar, 8 a.m. to noon. Non-negotiable. Tuesday, but we have the board meeting and reschedule it. I have something more important. Are you sure? Completely sure. And I need you to find the best cancer care facility in Los Angeles. Money is no object. I need names of the top oncologists. And I need flowers sent to Justine Wilson at the Four Seasons in Austin. White roses. A lot of them. Another pause. Longer this time. Is Justine sick?
Yes.
Yes, but we're gonna fix it. Just get me those names. And it. Anything else? Yeah. Clear my schedule next Saturday, too. Family time with the boys. Also non-negotiable. Okay. Elon, is everything all right? I looked at Nevada's journal, at the toy rocket I left on his grave, at the cemetery in my rearview mirror. No, I said honestly, but it's getting there. I hung up and finally drove home, back to Austin, back to work, back to the future. I was building, but this time, I carried the past with me. Not as a burden, as a reminder. Nevada died, but his impact lived on. In every rocket, in every innovation, in every moment, I chose to be present instead of absent. He gave me purpose. Now I just had to honor it properly. Tuesday morning came faster than I expected. I woke up at 5 a.m. unable to sleep. My mind kept spinning through everything. Nevada, Justine, the cancer, the choices I'd made. I got to the coffee shop at 7:30, ordered 2 large lattes and 2 blueberry muffins. Justine always loved blueberry muffins. The cancer center was in Santa Monica, a modern building, glass and steel. It's designed to look hopeful, I guess, but no building can hide what happens inside it. I arrived at 7:45, sat in the parking lot, holding the coffee, watching people come and go, patients with tired eyes, family members trying to look strong, nurses in scrubs moving with practiced efficiency. This was a different kind of battle than I was used to. No amount of money or engineering could guarantee victory here. At 7:55, Justine's car pulled up. She saw me and smiled. A real smile, even though she must have been terrified. I got out and walked over. You came, she said. I told you I would. I know, but I also know you. I half expected a text at 6 a.m. saying SpaceX emergency. There was a SpaceX emergency. I ignored it. Her eyebrows raised. Really? Really? Gwen can handle it. This is more important. I handed her the coffee and muffin. She took them like they were precious gifts. Good coffee? The best in LA, or so they claim. We walked into the building together. The lobby was quiet. Calming music played from hidden speakers. magazines on tables that nobody read, a fish tank in the corner. Everything designed to make people forget they were in a place where people fought for their lives. Justin checked in at the desk. The receptionist was kind, too kind, the way people are when they know you're scared. Room 4B, she said. Second floor. The nurses will get you all set up. We took the elevator in silence. Justine's hands shook slightly. She tried to hide it, but I noticed. You okay? I asked. Terrified, but, okay. You're the bravest person I know? She laughed softly. I'm not brave. I'm just out of options. Brave would be if I had a choice. Room 4B was bright and clean. A reclining chair that looked like it belonged on a spaceship. Medical equipment I didn't understand. A TV mounted on the wall. A window overlooking a garden. A nurse came in, young, maybe 30. Name tag said Rebecca. Good morning, Justine. Ready for your first treatment? Nobody could actually be ready for this. As ready as I'll ever be, Justine said. Rebecca looked at me. And you are? Elon. I paused. Where was I? Ex-husband sounded wrong. Friend sounded insufficient. I'm here for support. Wonderful. We encourage patients to bring support people. Makes the time go faster. Rebecca started setting up equipment. First treatment usually takes about 3 to 4 hours. We'll start with some anti-nausea medication and the chemo drugs. You might feel tired or sick afterward. Everyone reacts differently. Justine settled into the chair. I took the plastic visitor chair next to her. Rebecca inserted an IV. Justine winced but didn't complain. I'll be back in a few minutes to start everything, Rebecca said. Let me know if you need anything. When she left, Justine looked at me. You really don't have to stay the whole time. I know you're busy. I am exactly where I need to be. Elon Musk sitting in a chemo room for 4 hours. Your employees would never believe it. Probably not. I barely believe it myself. She laughed. Then her expression turned serious. I'm scared, she admitted. Not just of the treatment, of what comes after. The surgery, the uncertainty, whether I'll see the boys graduate college, whether I'll meet grandchildren someday.
Well, all of it.